A new owner, new players and a new manager. Could this be a new beginning for Reading FC? Let's find out. Welcome to Reviving the Royals Season 1. The fans look pretty chuffed, don't they? And so they should. They've experienced transfer embargoes, points deductions and relegation over the past few years. But now American tycoon Rob Kuig has bought the club from the much maligned Dai Yonger. And he's brought in a new gaffer to try to take the Royals from League One to the very top. Last season, Reading came within a whisker of making the playoffs, and since then some big players have left for pastures new. Centre-back Tyler Bindon is on loan at Sheffield United from Nottingham Forest, while his defensive partner Amadou Mbenge has gone to QPR. Further forward, midfielder Harvey Nibbs is now plying his trade at Charlton, and striker Jaden Wareham is at Exeter City. But some very talented players have decided to stay at the club. There's the goalkeeper Joel Pereira, who used to be on the books at Manchester United. Then there's the midfield pairing of captain Lewis Wing and Welsh legend Robbie Savage's son Charlie. Forward Kelvin Ehibachiman meanwhile has everything you need to score goals at this level. And let's not forget teenage fullback Andre Garcia, who looks like he's going to be very special indeed. On top of that, a bunch of new players have been brought in either permanently or on loan. Brighton have sent Marco Marni and Kamari Doyle to the SCL Stadium for this season. Manchester City have done the same with Finley Burns, while Matty Jacob is on loan from Hull City. And it's one of the permanent signings that is perhaps the most exciting. Winger Daniel Cherewa has bags of pace and bags of skill. He could easily light up League One. Here's how Reading line up for the new campaign. It may look a little defensive, but don't worry, they've been given plenty of licence to get forward. And finally, let's take a quick peek at the Youth Academy. Well, there might be some diamonds in the rough, but it looks like we'll have to wait a while to unearth them. Here we go then, the opening day of the season and a trip to Sincil Bank to play Lincoln City. Here's a stat for you. The last time Reading won here was all the way back in 1985. Could they break their 40-year hoodoo? The short answer's no. And to be fair, they didn't really deserve to either. The Royals started brightly enough and really should have taken the lead here. I'm still not sure how Ehibachiman managed to mess this up, but you have to say that is a fabulous save. The keeper also kept out this effort from Ben Elliott, but that was as good as it got for the visitors. Lincoln dominated the rest of the game and only a series of fine saves from Pereira kept it goalless. The Thames Valley derby against Wycombe Wanderers. A chance to earn not only 3 precious points, but also local bragging rights. New signing Paddy Lane was the star of the show in this one. The Northern Ireland international broke the deadlock after latching onto an Omani pass. And just look at those scenes back in Reading. I can only think that's the purple turtle bar. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. Lane thought he had a second just before half-time, but he was flagged for offside. Let's take a look at the replay. Ooh, that's a close one. Ehibachiman had the chance to redeem himself after that miss against Lincoln, but alas, this effort was saved. It made no difference in the end, as Wycombe never looked like scoring. This corner and then this cross right at the end of the match summed up their travails in front of goal. Final score 1-0. Having seen off Barnsley in the first round of the competition, Reading travelled to Championship side Stoke City in round 2 of the Carabao Cup. It was a chance for the reserves to strut their stuff, and it's fair to say they made the most of their opportunity. Now, did you know that Reading's young striker Basil Tuma used to be the deputy head boy at Eton of all places? It's true, look it up if you want, but not before admiring this awesome turn and finish to give the visitors the lead at the Bet365. Now from the sublime to the ridiculous, some appalling defending here to allow Tatsuki Siko to get to the byline and pull it back for Lamina Cisse to fire home the equaliser. Looking at the replay, it seems that shot was heading wide before it hit Royals defender Michael Stickland. Dreadful stuff all round. Luckily, the old Etonian was playing a blinder and soon had his second. He didn't have to work quite so hard for this one, as Brighton loanee Kamari Doyle put it on an absolute plate for him. Now, Carabao Cup ties can be pretty soporific, but the second half here was positively pulsating. Tuma almost turned provider for Mamadi Kamara, before Siko somehow conspired to spurn this glorious chance at the other end. Kamara then thought he had made the game safe, but the linesman put their flag up for offside. Fair enough. And then with just seconds remaining, Pereira pulled off a quite unbelievable save to deny former Royal Lewis Baker and seal Reading's place in the next round of the competition. And just take a look at who awaited them. Premier League champions Liverpool at a sold-out SCL Stadium. Reading fans may have been hoping that their opponents would not be taking taking the competition seriously and would be putting out their reserves, but one look at that starting lineup showed that the Reds were here to win. Still, the hosts more than held their own in the opening half hour until one moment changed the entire complexion of the match. Derail was played through and could have squared it to Omani, but he decided to go for glory himself. Not 5 minutes later, Alexander Isak was played through and beat not one but two defenders before sending a thumping finish into the net. After that, it was a procession. Wonder kid Rio Nguoma soon added a second before fellow youngster Seven Bajcetic netted just after half-time. You just knew that Mohamed Salah was going to get on the score sheet at some point, and then, having opened the scoring, Isak finished things off in injury time. This was a sobering result for the Royals, who would have to pick themselves up, dust themselves off and concentrate on the league for a bit. But they were soon hit with more bad news. Financial problems meant that their transfer kitty had to be slashed by £500,000. All of this was hardly the ideal preparation for a home game against table-topping Luton Town, who had the league's top scorer Elijah Adebayo up front. But with Christmas fast approaching, Reading's players wanted to give their fans an early present, and they more than played their part in what turned out to be the game of the season so far. Ben Elliott got the ball rolling with a run that saw defenders flock to him like moths to a flame. You could have driven a train through the gap they left behind. Captain Lewis Wing accepted Elliott's pass and slammed the ball home. But with half-time fast approaching, the Royals made exactly the same mistake at the back. They were so worried about Adebayo that they did not spot Jordan Clark's run, and by the time they did, it was too late. As the match wore on, it looked like neither side would be able to break the deadlock, but that all changed with the introduction of Kamari Doyle. The substitute flashed a shot against the post on 77 minutes before getting on the end of Ehibachiman's flick just 4 minutes later. That was not the end of the drama, however. With 5 minutes remaining, Adebayo showed why he is at the top of the League One scoring charts with a fine finish to spark wild celebrations and seemingly rescue a point for the visitors. But for some reason, the referee did not blow their whistle when the allotted 3 minutes of injury time was up. And then this happened. The SCL went ballistic. What a way for the Royals to bounce back from a terrible few weeks. With half the season gone then, Reading were firmly ensconced in an automatic promotion spot with league leaders Luton in their sights. When the January transfer window opened, Reading decided against splashing the cash on new signings. Instead, midfielder Tivonga Rashisha was allowed to join FC Andorra for £450,000. Brighton and Hull then decided to recall Marco Mani and Matty Jacob as they were not being given enough playing time. This meant that the Royal squad was not looking quite as bloated as it had been as they turned their attention to the world's oldest football competition, the FA Cup. And having already taken care of Cheltenham Town and Wigan Athletic in rounds 2 and 3, the Royals travelled to Ashton Gate to face Championship side Bristol City in the 4th round. Playing 3 at the back always looked like a big risk against Reading's front 3, and so it proved. The hosts were given an early warning of what was to come as Elliott found Paddy Lane and he forced the goalkeeper into a good save. But they were not to be denied, and Elliott was the architect again, popping a pass to Ehibachiman, who produced a classy finish. The roles were then reversed as Ehibachiman waited for Elliott to make a lung-bursting run forward before slipping the ball into his path. And the finish was exquisite. Hold on, let's take a look at that replay. I'm not sure legs are meant to do that. Bristol City could not handle Reading's attackers, and the game was all but over as a contest before half-time. You know the drill by now. Elliott into Ehibachiman, ball into net. Far too easy. With Omani gone, the goal-scoring burden had fallen squarely on this young man's shoulders, and he was showing that he was firmly up to the challenge here at Ashton Gate. Somewhat unsurprisingly, the visitors couldn't maintain those high levels after the break, and the hosts grew into the game somewhat. They eventually got themselves on the score sheet late on as Anis Mehmeti held off Jeriel Dorset and found the far corner. The goal really sparked them into life, and they went close twice more in added time, but Pereira was there to save his side on both occasions. This deserved victory gave Reading a home tie against Premier League side Brentford in the next round. The visitors lined up with Kai Havertz in their ranks, with the former Arsenal forward having moved across London during the January transfer window. On to the game itself, Reading started well and and stood firm against their more illustrious opponents. But while they had been able to cut through Bristol City almost at will, Brentford were a different proposition entirely. Every time they broke forward, they found that their attacks were being snuffed out with relative ease. At the other end, Brentford began ramping up the pressure on their opponents. Jordan Henderson and Mikkel Damsgaard were both denied by Pereira before Havertz had a shot blocked and saw another effort fly wildly off target. The German persevered and with seconds remaining threaded a wonderful pass into the path of Kevin Schade, and he did the rest. Heartbreak for Reading's players and their fans then, but this wasn't the end of their cup exploits, not by a long way. Having paid no attention to the competition whatsoever, they found themselves in the semi-finals of the Vertu trophy. With a trip to Wembley up for grabs, they faced League Two Walsall, who looked like they were going to try to keep it tight by playing 5 at the back at the SCL Stadium. But the best laid schemes of mice and men gang after gley, look it up, and after just 4 minutes, Elliott got onto the end of an Ehibachiman pass to put the Royals ahead. Walsall looked shell-shocked as Reading poured forward, with Wing forcing their goalkeeper into a good save and Dorset heading wide. But the visitors gathered themselves and twice went close to forcing an equaliser as Jamie Jellis brought the best out of Pereira before Aaron Presley poked a shot beyond the far post under pressure from Garcia. The second half was much less frantic, with both sides probing for an opening. But the match burst into life late on as 2 substitutes, Doyle and Shea Spencer, combined to set up Chirewa for what looked like Reading's second. To his chagrin, he was offside. Then, with moments remaining, Chirewa found Ehibachiman and he squared it for Doyle to lift the roof off the SCL. The Royals were on their way back to Wembley. Reading have been to the National Stadium on a number of occasions, but haven't actually won there since lifting the now defunct Simod Cup back in 1988. While fellow League One outfit Wigan Athletic wouldn't be easy opponents, this felt like a real chance to win some silverware at this famous venue. Now, some would argue that there is no place for sentimentality in football, but one giant pixel obviously disagreed as he picked Royal stalwart Andy Yeardom as captain in what looked like being his final season with the club. There was nothing sentimental about the ruthless way in which Reading went about their business at Wembley, however. Straight from kick-off, they worked the ball upfield and it eventually made its way to the feet of the prolific Ehibachiman, who found the bottom corner. Once again, the purple turtle was bouncing. Wigan then wasted a couple of golden opportunities to get back on level terms as Paul Mullin drew a fingertip save from Pereira and Christian Sadie fired wide from the edge of the box. And the Royals punished them for their profligacy, with Ehibachiman finishing off a flowing move to make it 2-0. Pereira was once again called upon to save his side as he shuffled Joseph Hungbo's effort around the post. From the resulting corner, Reading broke at pace. Chirewa played it into Ehibachiman, who waited and waited before releasing Elliott. And the former Chelsea youngster made no mistake. Sucker punch after sucker punch after sucker punch. And you can possibly forgive Wigan for falling apart at that point, but they kept on plugging away, creating a number of chances but just failing to take them. Finally, with time running out, their pressure paid off. Callum Wright latched onto a pass from Sadie and gleefully rammed it into the top corner to reduce the deficit. Then, in added time, Sadie was at it again as his pass allowed Paul Mullin to pull another goal back. But it was too little, too late. The Vertu Trophy may not be the most glamorous of competitions, but Reading's players and fans didn't care one bit. And what a moment for Yeardom, who lifted the trophy to get the party started. This was a welcome piece of silverware, but the Royals still had a job to do in League One. And one of their toughest games in the run-in came against fellow high flyers Cardiff City. In the pouring rain at the SCL, this was a veritable game of two halves. Reading started like a train, and yet again it was Elliott pulling the strings and Ehibachiman applying the finishing touch as the hosts went ahead. With the crowd urging them on, the Royals kept coming forward, and only the Cardiff goalkeeper kept his side in it with saves from Ehibachiman and Chirewa. Lord knows what the visitors' manager said at half-time, because they came out for the second half like men possessed. Within minutes of the restart, Chris Willock found Alex Robertson and he blew past Finley Burns before firing past Pereira. Reading were wobbling and mistakes at the back almost gave Callum Robinson the chance to win it. But Dorset appeared from nowhere to produce an astonishing tackle and ensure that the match ended 1-1. After all of that, this was the situation with 2 games of the season remaining. Reading were outside the automatic promotion spots, but crucially, Cardiff had already completed their League One campaign. The Royals knew that if they beat Mansfield Town in their next game, they would secure promotion to the Championship. And with a match against Luton at Kenilworth Road on the final day, that would also set up a mouth-watering winner-takes-all clash for the title. Field Mill was looking resplendent as the two sides emerged into the May sunshine. Unsurprisingly, Reading appeared to be quite anxious early on, and the hosts were the better side in the opening stages. Luckily, the Royals had Pereira between the sticks, and he did well to tip this George Maris effort around the post early on. Slowly but surely, the visitors worked up ahead of steam, and as on so many other occasions this season, Elliott and Ehibachiman combined to put them 1 up. This pairing had built up quite the partnership, and they were at it again just 8 minutes later to really settle any lingering nerves. The floodgates well and truly opened in the second half as Paddy Lane finished off yet another pass from the increasingly influential Elliott. Substitutes Jack Marriott and Kamari Doyle then combined to allow the former to lash a shot into the bottom corner, and there was still time for the captain to stride through a tiring Mansfield backline to add a 5th and really put the icing on the cake. As the final whistle blew, Reading had ensured that they would be a Championship club once more after 3 seasons away. They let those waves of relief and elation wash over them as they accepted the adulation of the travelling fans. But they could not switch off completely because that final game against Luton Town was on the horizon. The Hatters' superior goal difference meant that a draw would not be enough for Reading to win the title, only a win would do. But the destination of the League One trophy was not the only topic of conversation in the build-up to this one. There was also a debate as to whether Elijah Adebayo or Kelvin Ehibachiman would fire their side to glory. What a chance this was for Adebayo to strike the first blow in that particular contest, but somehow Pereira got a hand to it to keep out his shot from 6 yards. Soon afterwards, Reading went through the gears, putting together a flowing move that ended with Ehibachiman taking advantage of some truly woeful goalkeeping to put his side ahead. Honestly, what on earth was the keeper doing there? The Hatters responded well to going behind, with Milanik Ali twice going close before Mads Andersen headed over. But the Royals were always a threat, and Elliott almost doubled their advantage before half-time. Then, with an hour gone, the visitors struck what felt like a decisive blow as Charlie Savage found Daniel Trerewa and he sent a looping effort into the far corner. The Royals' backline had successfully nullified the threat of Adebayo thus far, and even when they made a mistake, he could not find a way past Pereira. With seconds remaining, Ehibachiman showed him how it was done to not only win the Battle of the Strikers, but to also cement Reading's status as champions. Substitutes streamed onto the pitch as the final whistle blew. After 10 gruelling months, the Royals had come out on top in League One. All that was left was for Captain Lewis Wing to accept the trophy and for he and his colleagues to accept the plaudits from the boisterous travelling support. The Championship would almost certainly prove tougher, but that could wait. This was a time for celebration. Joel Pereira was named the League One Player of the Season for his sterling efforts between the sticks. Just look at how many clean sheets he ended up with. Kelvin Ehibachiman was the league's 4th highest goal scorer, while Ben Elliott and Daniel Trerewa were both in the top 3 when it came to assists. So there you have it. Reading will be plying their trade in the Championship next season after winning the League One title and also taking home the Vertu trophy. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like or even subscribe to the channel. Goodbye for now.